Now, at the present time or moment, Hebrews 11:1. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, and the evidence of things not seen. Hey everybody, welcome back once again. It's your girl Jasmine. So we're going to be talking about believing God for the now. I'm very excited because, yesterday on my blog I talked about kind of looking back at your life and wanting to rewind your life at moments, that didn't go too well, but you wish they would change. And then, kind of looking at, wanting to fast forward your life and seeing where you would be in the future. And maybe, pausing the moments that, were really special to you. But then again, you can't do that in life. You have to just press play and watch how life unfolds, And so tonight I went to the women's meeting at my church, and they were talking about, the remember wins and how, God talks about, forgetting the old, and basically pressing forward and moving forward. And so today we're going to be talking about, because one of my biggest things when, because that's my thing, I've been dwelling on the past recently, and I've lost a few things this year, which I really wanted to get back in my life. And so I was, I wrote this Bible study actually a few days ago, well, the beginning of it, and I was asking God, to myself, like, well, what do you want me to do now? And it's crazy because then my lesson was called Now Believe. Believing for the now, right here, this moment, this time, this place. So we're going to kind of be in John chapter 11, and then I'm going to just allow, God to take control. So, like he always does, he's great. So we're going to be looking in John 11, verse 20. It says, Then Martha, as soon as she heard that Jesus was coming, went to meet him, but Mary sat still in the house. So basically, Jesus is now showing up to the situation after Lazarus has died. He's been dead for a few days. Didn't seem like Jesus was going to show up. Didn't seem like he was going to change the situation. Everything's all settled. Everything's all rested. And the people are in mourning. Everybody's in mourning over how Jesus just didn't show up in the situation. And so everything's calm now to an extent, but people are in their mourning period. And now Jesus wants to stir things up. It's crazy how in life, when things get all calm, when you think you have your life all together, when, you're just all settled and content now, that Jesus wants to show up. You kind of get a little angry, and so I can understand Martha's anger, because she was about to be like, look, now you want to show up? Now. After I'm happy, after I'm content, after I'm satisfied, after I thought you were going to show up, everybody else thought you were going to show up, and you just let my brother die. You let my situation die, you didn't intervene, you just watched me cry, you just watched me holler, I called for you, you didn't answer, nothing. But now you want to come? So here it is. So Martha, as soon as she heard that Jesus was coming, went out to meet him, but Mary sat still in the house. And then Martha said unto her, Lord, if thou would have been here, my brother would have not died. But I know that even now, whatsoever thou wilt ask of God, God will give it to thee. And Jesus said unto her, Thy brother shall arise again. And Martha said unto him, I know that he shall rise again in the resurrection in the last days. Jesus said unto her, I am the resurrection and the life. And he that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. So we're going to start right here. So basically, Martha and Mary had heard that Jesus was coming, and they went to go meet him, but Mary sat still in the house. But Martha, she wanted to get an answer, and she wanted her answer now for why Jesus did not show up. Why was he coming here now? So it says, Then Martha said unto Jesus, If thou would have been here, my brother would have not died. Martha was angry because Jesus wanted to show up now, but he didn't want to show up then. Sometimes in our lives, it gets a little frustrating when God wants to do something in our lives right now, in a time, in a moment, in a place where he should have showed up when things were a little bit more easier, when things were a little bit more simpler. When things, when the doors seemed to be more open. Here it was, her brother was a little sick, he was still living, he's still breathing, he still had a heartbeat, everything, Lord, if you would have been here, but you weren't. You weren't here. You're here now that it's too late, now that things aren't as easy as, they could have been. You just sat there and allowed my brother to die. You watched my situation. You didn't come. You didn't change it. You didn't do anything. You just allowed it to crumble into pieces. I was depending on you to be here. I believed that you were going to come. I believed then, but you're showing up. And, do you expect me to believe now? Now that everything has fallen apart, now that I've been laughed at, now that I've watched, my brother die, now that, I had faith in you, and you just, you want me to believe after what just happened? You want me to have a now belief after you just watched my brother die? Right now. At this moment, you want me to believe now? At this moment, there's no way. And it can be hard because sometimes God won't show up. Jesus won't show up into our situations, into our circumstances, our life. And, but then he wants to show up, and then he expects you to believe for the moment that, that you're in right now. When you look down in verse 25, it says, Jesus said unto her, I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. It was like he was saying, okay, I showed up now, even though your situation is all messed up, and even though it's all crazy, and even though it's all hectic, I don't care what happened then. It doesn't matter what happened then, because all that matters is what's happening right now. And what Christ wanted, Martha to understand is, I'm in your face right now. No, I wasn't in your face then. I didn't show up then, but I can change your issue right now. And that can be hard, because it's like, how do you expect me to believe that now you're here, now that you've showed up, now that you're in my face, you want me to believe, after my situation's dead, after, the door of even opening up my situation is harder to open up, how do you expect me to believe you right now when you weren't there? And it's hard because he was basically trying to express to Martha that it didn't matter what didn't happen. What all that matters is what was happening right now. And so I'm going to put up the first 2 questions, and we're going to look more into that, all right? Peace. Do you have a past faith, or do you have a now faith? Do you believe that Jesus can change your issue now, that it seems to be too late? Alright, so we're going to be looking in verse 22. So basically it says, But I know that even now, whatsoever thou wilt ask of God, God will give it to thee. So what Martha knew was that even now, at that moment, at the time, even though he had not shown up, that whatever it was that Jesus was going to ask of God, that God would grant him, is like, she understood. She believed that God, that Christ could do whatever it was that he was going to do now that he showed up. She believed. She understood that, within herself, because she knew Christ. She knew what he was about. She knew that he could do, that he knew that all things were possible with him. The Bible says that all things are possible with Christ for those who believe. Well, she was a believer in Christ, and she knew that all things were possible. So she knew, but she knew for the now that Christ could do it now. Even though she had gone through, that hard time losing her brother and seeing her brother die and having to go through the struggle and having to go through the pain, she knew that even though uh, Christ has showed up, that he could still change the situation now. And I know that as believers, we can all get like that. Like, I know that even though I've gone through some hard times and I've watched my situation die, that if Christ wanted to change my situation right now, that he could. There's no doubt in my mind that he couldn't. And it was crazy because I talked to, my grandma today, and we were talking about 5-year plans, and I talked about how I didn't have a 5-year plan. And I says, I wrote a blog the other day about having plans. I don't have a plan for my life, because why do I need a plan for something that God already has a plan for? That's like saying, hey, I'm going to have a 5-year plan for my life, but God has a plan for my life. So I'm going to cover up God's plan with my 5-year plan. It's not really working. And so I said, I take my life day by day, and whatever God has for me on that day, he has for me. I said, but it can change. Right now, God can change my situation. It doesn't matter. I've had days where I wasn't expecting something to change, and then all of a sudden he changed my situation. Do you think, Lord, if you would have been here, my brother would have not died? Did she think that if Christ, showed up and, came there, hey, he's gonna come and raise my brother from the dead? Did she expect that would happen? Did she expect that he'd show up on that day? Whenever we see Jesus in the Bible, he was there at that moment, at that time, at that place, in the now, right then and there. And whenever he saw someone, he changed their situation right then and there, in the now. He didn't wait, when he was passing by blind men, when he was passing, this one, when he was there, the now with the demon possessed man who was at that now moment. That was that now moment, and at that now moment, he was there in his face, and he changed the circumstance. Then that was his moment. It was in the now. It was here in the now, in the place. And Christ can do it. Whatever thou wilt ask of God, God will give it to thee. And she knew that, if Christ just asked, then you give it. And I know that, like, even in my life, sometimes it can be hard to believe God for things in the now, and even want to ask in the now, or, okay, Lord, can you change the situation now? Because imagine being her, Martha, praying, Lord, I sent for you. You didn't come. You watched my situation die. Lord, I prayed for you. I prayed to you, and you didn't hear me. I don't know if you were listening. Did you hear me crying out to you? Did you hear me, all that other stuff, like, do I get discouraged? And, I remember in college when, God had asked God about my husband and getting married, and one day, and for years I always prayed and asked him if it was this one person, and he would always tell me, "Well, keep living life." And I remember the day where my friend Brandon was actually said to me, "Why don't you pray about it?" And I said, "I have before." He said, "Why don't you ask now?" Because I've asked before. Well, why don't you ask now? And I remember God giving me the answer, saying, don't kick people out of your life where God placed there for a reason. And it didn't matter what had happened before. Well, all that mattered was that now moment, and when I had that now moment, God answered, and and it was right then and right there, but I'm like, God, why didn't you say before, but it, sometimes when God shows up, it's not for that moment. It's not for that time. He has that now moment, that now time, that now place, for when he is going to do things in your life. Everything has its time. Everything has its purpose. There are certain times for that now moment, and so, sometimes that's what we do have to do. We have to ask now. And we think about the woman, we think about Solomon when Queen Sheba went to go visit Solomon. It says in verse 12 of 2nd Chronicles chapter 9, it says, "And King Solomon gave the queen of Sheba all her desires whatsoever she asked, besides that which she had brought to the king. So she turned and went away to her own land, and she and her servants." So basically, whenever the queen had asked of him, he gave the queen whatever she asked. And sometimes, what we need to understand is that, even if Christ, our God, didn't answer us, before on a question or something, he has the perfect timing, and we shouldn't be afraid to ask him now, because he might give us an answer that changes our situation right then and right there, because that's what he was doing with Martha. He was trying to let her know that right now, in that moment, he was changing her situation. Have you asked Christ to do something for your now that you have once asked him before, yet it wasn't at the right moment, the now moment? What is Christ's answer for your question now versus before? Has it changed or stayed the same? Alright, so we're going to look at Joshua, and we're going to look at chapter 2, verse 12. So basically what's happening here is Joshua sent 2 spies into the promised land to go spy out the land, and they went into the land of Jericho, and they ended up into a harlot's house named Rahab. And so if you know Rahab, her life, she was a prostitute, but at that moment, in that now moment, she wanted some type of change in her life. She didn't want to live in the past. She didn't want to live as a harlot. She wanted to change, and she wanted to do it now. There's times in our lives where, we're tired of living the same life. We're tired of having the same lifestyle that we once had. We're tired of going in the same motions. When I decided that I would get off the street, I had a now moment. I wanted to change my life. I was tired of saying, tomorrow I will change my life. Tomorrow things will change. I want change now. And when I wanted it now, I decided that I was going to change. There was no ands, there is no ifs, there's no buts. I wanted my change, and I wanted it now. And sometimes we have to get at that moment. She had been a prostitute for too long. She had played certain games for far too long. She had done certain things and lived a certain lifestyle for so long, but not anymore. It was time for her to change, and it was time now for her to have a now change, a now new lifestyle. And so we'll see that. So basically, God sent the spies over, and then once they got sent over, when they were about to leave, she approached them and said, and we'll look in verse 12 what she said to them. She said before they were to leave, "Now, right now, therefore, I pray you swear to me by the Lord, while you're in front of me, while you're here right now, while you're in this moment, since I have shown you kindness, that ye also show kindness unto my father's house, and give me a true token." So right then, right there, while she had them in her face, she wanted them to swear to her right now that they would show kindness to her father's house. It says, and that ye will save alive my father and my mother and my brethren and my sister and all that they have, and deliver our lives from death. So basically what she was asking was, look, I'm asking you this right now. When I have you in your face, don't leave here today. Don't leave out of Jericho right now. Don't leave without me talking to you right now while I have you in my face. When you come back, I need something from you, and I need to know right now if you will do this for me. Because if they would have left Jericho, she would have missed her now moment. She said, right now, in this moment, I need you to swear to me by the Lord, since I have shown you kindness, that you will also show kindness unto my father's house, and give me a token, and that you will save alive my father and my mother and my brethren and my sisters and all that they have, and deliver our lives from death. And because they asked at that moment, in that moment, she got a now answer. A now answer. And the answer was right there in verse 14. And the men answered her. Not when they left, not when they came back, not making her wait for her answer, but now. Our life for yours. If ye utter not this our business. And it shall be, when the Lord hath given us the land, that he will deal kindly and truly with thee. So basically they were saying to her, look, right now, as of right now, you're a free woman for change. You don't have to live your lifestyle of prostitution anymore, and your family is going to get free behind this wall. As of right now, your change is here, and when we come back for Jericho, you will live a whole new lifestyle. That is it. No more bondage. No more having to sell yourself to man after man after man. But now you're going to be free from the place that you're at. Now Rahab would be free from where she was. And what happened to her later on? Who did she marry? She got an opportunity to marry a Solomon, right? That's who she married. And they had Boaz, and Boaz married Ruth. And they had Obed, who had Jesse, who had David, who down the bloodline had baby Jesus. You know, it was one of those now moments that changed her life forever. She would no longer have to be the harlot. But if she never asked in that moment, in that time, in that place, hey, can you come back for me? Are you coming back for me? She would have, for the rest of her life, which wouldn't have been last long because everything got destroyed when Jericho gone. As when the children of Israel came back, if she missed it out, everything would have been destroyed. But because she asked at that now moment, she received her now answer, and her life was saved and spared. She got an opportunity to live a whole different lifestyle just because of that now moment. And she received that now answered. It says, and then she let down her them by the cord, by the window, for her house was upon the town wall, and she dwelt upon the wall. You know, just imagine like living a lifestyle where, you know, things were horrible back then, but what about now? You can't change then. You can't change what happened. You can't change the mistakes. You can't change the issues. You can't change the dead situation. I don't care how bad Martha wanted to change the fact that Lazarus died, point blank period, Lazarus died. Jesus raised him back up, but it did not matter, because at the end of the day, his testimony was, I died and Christ raised me back up. I was dead, but I am now alive again. I was the teen runaway, but now I run my own women's ministry. Now I am preparing to move to Florida. Now my life is different. Now I have changed. What are you doing now? What can Christ do for you now? What do you want Christ to say that he can do for you now? What do you want him to do in your life now, today? I talked about, a few weeks ago about second chances and change in your life. So often we think that, tonight at my Bible study, I talked about how, sometimes you got to reach out for Christ, like the woman with the issue of blood. It took me forever to heal. And I had to reach for Christ. And I had to fight for my healing. It just didn't come overnight. But there's some things that when God is right in front of your face, that he can do them now. Right now, at this moment. At this time. What did Rahab say? She said, now, right now, I pray thee swear unto me at this moment. And they gave her an answer in that same moment. An answer that would change her life forever. So what are you waiting for? If there's something you want to ask God in your life that could change your life, you never know until you ask. But you gotta ask now. If you don't know Christ as your personal Lord and Savior, ask him to save you. That's what Rahab did. She asked now, and God saved her from destruction, from pain, from heartache. There's some things that if we don't do them now, it could affect our life forever. Rahab, she asked at the right moment, the now moment. Because in that moment, her life was never the same ever again. So now that Christ is going to change your situation, are you going to accept the change?